full service architectural practice, it's the only way to go.
Hey, Jonathan, I know that you started your careers where providing full services. What do you think about that?
Well, that you're quite right. This is where, my first job ever was working for a company that provided full service architectural services. And that meant, design, documentation, tendering, administration or observation on site, and taking care of all of that site stuff as well. And one of the things that so as a young architect, one of the first things that it taught me was what a set of drawings should represent and what a set of drawings was for. Because when you're on site standing in front of the contractor and he points at your detail and starts saying, I don't know what the hell this is, this will never work. Or what the hell is this supposed to show? And you say, well, that's a detail doing this and that. And they go, but it doesn't say that. You quickly learn to draw details that actually communicate to the builder. So number one, being on site is really important for a young designer and a young architectural technologist because they quickly learn what they should and what they shouldn't do. So that's number one. That's what I think. But the other thing is that when you do, so a lot of architectural technologists do consent drawings only, building consent only. And they then give those to that's it. They give them to the client. That's it. Job finished. I wash my hands of this project. But we know that things aren't always as easy as that. You get to site conditions. They're not what you thought. Site conditions change. If it's a renovation, my goodness, as soon as you take off the wall lining, it's not what you thought. It's all completely different. But the other thing is that design doesn't stop just because you've done some documentation, in my mind anyway. In my mind, design goes through every decision you make until you reach practical or final completion. So the client says, we're thinking about putting down carpet. Well, what kind of carpet? There's myriad choices of carpet. Should it be wool carpet? Should it be non-wool carpet? Should it be tufted? Should it be loop? Should it be, there's just, and each one has an effect. And then the designer can then start to say, well, the idea that I had was to have this kind of finish. What's the closest I can do with that? What colors should the client choose? There's so many things that are still designing right up to the end. But what if during the process, something has to change and you're the designer and you can then be there and you can help the client through that change process? Now, some people say, oh, you're only there to fix your mistakes. Yeah, okay, well, that's what they say. But, we can't know everything. So halfway through the design, the client changes their mind. I want a fridge with an ice dispenser. Oh, okay. Well, we better tell the plumber now because we're going to get some pipe work up there, not turn up at the last minute for the builder. And if you don't do the full service, you're letting the builder make all of those decisions that you as the architect or the architectural designer should be helping the client make. Remember that the AT and the architect, you are a specialist in this area, and that you're then letting the client be led by someone who's a specialist builder, but not a specialist designer. And you think of all the things that, so we know when the AT goes on site or the architect goes on site, and you go, okay, you're pouring the concrete now. Let me have a look at the temperature. Well, it's freezing at the moment. You can't pour the concrete now. It's going to have an adverse effect on the curing. Oh, or you can't do this now. And I know we're not there to supervise. We're there to observe or administer the contract. But there are so many parts to this. So for example, money. If you looked at money, every month the contractor sends his bill in and says, I've done 20% of the concrete and I've done 10% of this and I've got 10% of that. Here's my bill. How do we know it's 20% of this and 10% of that? That's the job of the AT to do that. You're helping the client administer the money that's going through the contract. So I just think there are so many reasons that you should be doing it. The other thing is that administration on site is worth, I think, 25% of the fee. I think it's 25, maybe 15. It's still worth a lot of money. say take practical completion. Who determines whether the building is practically complete and ready for the client to move in? Is
First,
it the builder?
consultant sign it.
Well,
First, the
yeah,
consultant
but only
sign
if you're
it.
doing full service.
Yeah. Mhm. And
What
then
if
to
what if you
proceed.
don't? I mean, so there are so many things. So I think that if we were serious about design, documentation, the construction of our buildings, we'd want to do full service.
Hmm. Yeah, that
I
makes
mean, what's
sense.
your experience?
Well, my experience was when as soon as I finished my degree and I work in a design office, and my boss say, "Okay, this is a design, and you're a young architect. You must go to the site every day and sketch and see what's happening, and come back and give feedback to me." That's how he trained me. So you know, because young architects, right? I actually sometimes I know, sometimes I don't know. To be frank, right? Uh, for example, like how the beams and walls connect, right? So how the details is. Sometimes I may have an architectural sparks, and okay, if I original design was like this, but if we change the details, and it will makes it much better and nicer design, what we can do it. And I becomes, so passionate, and I talk between the architects and the clients. And because I'm a junior, site, so you can say it's a site architects, or a little bit of at site administrations, and what we can order things and etc. So it's give me a lot of knowledge during the whole process of building that buildings. And for example, like when I was sitting at the site, and I was when builder was buildings, I was sketching how the buildings will be completed. After that, I do watercolor. Okay, what if I paint the wall in this color? What from the nature, from this angle, how will it be look like? uh, will it be better? Well, sometimes I went back and showed it to the architects, and it because it, I'm trying to change his design or concept. It may upset, but I have a reason to defend as well. So I'm learning so many things, and from there I developed. My first project was really really important, and it makes me grounded. And also for example, like if I say in my drawings, if I draw it like 100 by 100, or I don't really know, it's just a small piece, right? But when I go to the site, 100, a brick size is, oh, that's this big. How we need to install it in that way. The masons are walking in that way. If I draw it like that, they have no way to install, because they need to put their hands in and tighten the screw, etc. I also had to learn, okay, if I'm a building, I can't do this kind of detailings. On the drawing, yes, I can draw screws and I can tighten it. That's on the drawing, but is it practical? Can we install it? For example, this corner. So all the troubles, all the details, and all the architectural aspects, structural installation aspect. Yeah, I learned a lot, and the project, and also I can see how the money's has, the money flow, cash flow, right? So the contractor is claiming the money, and yeah, it's developed my career. And from there, one after another, I started doing, and I moved my career to construction management. And then yeah, it
Okay,
is,
well,
yeah, it's really good.
let's go back to that first job. Your
Mhm.
your employer sent you on site to observe what was
Yes,
going on, but he
yes.
can't do that if he doesn't offer full service. Because if you don't offer full service, he can't send you onto site, because only the engineer to the contract is allowed to tell who goes on site. So you can't
Mhm.
just you can't just rock up
Yeah,
and
he took
say,
he took up full service. Yeah.
yeah. So he can't just say, oh, go to site. We only did working drawings, we only did building consent drawings, but I want you to go and observe what's going on. The contractor can say, get out of here. You're not allowed on site. Um,
Yeah.
so to teach architects and architectural technologists to do good working drawings that communicate effectively, they need to have that exposure on site. And the only way
Yes.
to get that exposure on site is for the employer to be offering a full service so that he's in control of that site. He's an engineer to the contract. He's allowed on site whenever he wants. He's an architect on that site. He's allowed to send
Hmm.
observers. You can go observe. You can take photos. You can learn from seeing what the contractor does and the way they do it, so that that
Yes.
will improve your documentation in the future. It'll improve
Yeah.
your skill in the future. You'll learn to communicate effectively on site. Um, One of the other things which doesn't seem important until you need it is the ability to run a meeting.
Yeah.
So when I first left, I was actually put in charge of a contract, and it was my job to run the site meetings. And what they
Hmm.
did, what my employer did, was encourage me to become a member of the NZIA. I went to branch meetings of the NZIA. They encouraged me to take a responsible role in that group so that I would
Hmm.
learn how a meeting is run. And then after the meetings, they would talk to me about how do you run a meeting? How does a chairman? What's the role of the chairman? And so that I learned how to run a site meeting through all
Hmm.
those other techniques,
Hmm.
because that's really, the ability to run a meeting is really fundamental. Because
Yeah.
when the meeting, when you want the meeting to be quick, you need an agenda. You should stick to the agenda, not be sidetracked. You stop a lot of conversation that's going on in the background. You make sure that everyone stays on task. You keep the meeting short. You set a
Hmm.
short time scale for it. The meeting, makes decisions and moves on. But if you don't offer that full service, you don't learn those techniques. So what I was saying is that it's really important to learn those skills. I mean, as an example is from like my mother told me an example where and she's in one of these lifestyle villages, and there's a residents association, and they have a committee and a chairperson, all that kind of stuff. And she was
Hmm.
telling how that the committee meetings are really disorganized, that they don't stick to the agenda, they don't stay on topic. The meetings seem to go for hours, and they don't really get to the nub of the problem and solve the problems that they've got to solve. And had those people had that right training that I'm talking about, that would be a skill that they would then know, okay, this is the committee meeting, this is what we've got to cover, here's the agenda. No, it's not on the agenda. Um, if it's important, we'll cover it this month. Otherwise, we'll
Right.
put it on the agenda for next month. And you keep a tight control. The chairperson has to keep a tight control over those meetings. And that's a skill that you learn as an AT or an architect or a construction manager by learning those skills on site, where you've got to manage strong egos in a careful
Yes.
and a considerate way, but make sure that the meetings stay on topic. Meetings will last as forever if you let them. And the trick is, of course, you create a 1 hour meeting. You've only got 1 hour to do it. You've got to hurry through all the stuff. You've got a whole lot of issues to talk about. And when the conversation starts wandering off, no, let's come back. We need to focus on this. We've only got an hour left. We've only got half an hour left.
Hmm.
We need to get through these things. And it helps people focus on their attention. But that's a skill that you learn, and it's not a skill that we teach in our course.
Yeah. In my course, I teach how the students to write meeting minutes, and it is a struggle because it is the first time in their life writing meeting minutes. So they have never seen meeting minutes. So I give, okay, this is an example of how to write meeting minutes. You just need to be factual, short. You don't need to write long unnecessarily, right? So you need to put who is responsible for the task, who is when do you want to complete. Yeah, it is quite interesting for the AT students to do that thing. Yeah, currently they are writing meeting minutes at the moment. So let's see how it happens. Yeah, but uh, okay. By the way, I have a neighbor. She's also my student. And she always told me, she is currently the student leader in my school, and she really appreciate me. She always told me, Ethan, the students leaders meeting minutes is the meeting minutes format that I give it to her, and she is writing, and I'm really glad that she grows from there, and she shows her leadership. She took up leaderships and doing that. So really, really, I'm really proud of her from that. I believe she will, when she finishes the course, she can continue and prosper. That's what I wish for.
That sounds interesting. So our students don't have like a student representative to talk to us. I really like that idea. Totally off topic, so we should get back onto topic. So back to the topic, Ethan. I'm a
Hmm.
real firm believer that you should, as a designer,
Yep.
always ask for full service, because you can administer the contract, you can certify the payments, certify the sign the certificates, certify practical completion, uh, defects liability period, all of that stuff for the client, keeping in mind
Yes.
that you're working for the client in all those situations.
Yes.
Um, and also you have the ability to solve problems during the construction that, if you weren't there, may not be solved in the right way that suits the design that you've put so much work into.
Yeah. And the clients may not know also, because the clients may be the first time builder, the first time constructing his home.
Yeah,
So
they'll end up with a
yeah.
project that you've started designing and the builder has finished designing. But the builder often is looking for an expedient way to make money and to finish the job quickly. What you would be wanting to do is to make a job that satisfies the client's requirements long term. And
Yes.
maybe you'd be better off having that full service. I
Mhm.
know I know on the odd time I've worked on a project where it wasn't full service, the client doesn't understand where that line is. They say, "Oh, we only want building consent drawings." You go, "Great, here's your building consent drawings." And then, you answer out all the RFIs. So, a couple of months later, okay, building consent issued. Okay, client, go pick up the building consent. And then they get a builder, and the builder starts going, "Oh, I need a bit more information in this area. Hey, designer, can you give me the information?" No. Why not? Well, because the client didn't want that service. Well, I need to know. Oh, this case was the setting out of the piles. I wanted them
Mhm.
evenly spaced between here and there. Well, can you give me the spacing, the distance between each pile? No, it's equally spaced. Well, I want to know exactly how far apart they are. Well, you know, I'm not. That's not what my service is finished at that point.
Yeah. It's very
Where if it was
difficult
a
for the
full,
clients or the
yeah,
builders too.
and if it was full service, you'd say, yeah, here's the answer. Because
Yeah.
I suspect that the building consent drawings and the working drawings are two separate documents.
Always.
There's a lot more information goes on that if we stop the building consent. And there have been cases where I've gone into a building site to see flashings being put in the wrong way. He's like, "What are you doing?" "I've always done it that way." What? You've always done it wrong. You've got to fix it. It's not your job to do it. But if the builder is supervising themselves, who checks to make sure the builder's doing it correctly? I mean, it's not our job to supervise. I understand all of that. It's just our job to observe. But if we observe an issue, then we really have to say something. And
Yes.
there was
Yeah.
I did the drawings for a house, and we was walking around with the contractor, and the architect was walking around, and I was just following along, like the junior, just following along. And we go past the bedroom, and I look out, and I see the pipe going for the outside tap. And I said to the builder, "Where's the hot tap?" And they went, "What?" I said, "We see you got the cold tap going outside. Where's the hot tap?" And they laughed at me. You're kidding, right? you know, it's one of those jokes, like a long wait or a a
Uh-huh.
left-handed screwdriver. He thought I was kidding, and I said, no, there's a hot tap required. And he goes, well, it's not on the drawings. I said, yes, it is. And we had a look at the
Uh-huh.
drawings, and there's the hot tap and the cold tap, because they
Yeah.
were vets and they had dogs, and they wanted to wash the dogs outside with warm water,
Uh-huh.
not
Yeah.
with cold water. And it was that kind of thing where that could have been, you imagine
Missed.
no one noticed. The client gets there, they go to wash their dog. Where's the tap?
Yeah.
Where's the tap? Oh, we didn't put it in. Oh, okay, Builder, you forgot the tap. Oh my God, how are we going to get the hot water now from the hot tap, from the hot water cylinder through the house to the outside with an outside tap? I mean, you'd be tearing off walls all over the place. And that's the sort of
Uh-huh.
thing where I think
Yeah.
that it's really our job to do that full service and to make sure that the clients are really getting the best service that they possibly can.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So, you agree with me?
Yes, I'm agree with you. Yes. Yeah. So I
Well,
think we should wrap up today's webinar.
yeah,
And
you
yeah,
agree. I agree.
yes,
We should find
full
something we can
service.
argue about. Be a lot more
Wow.
fun.
We should. Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes. Yeah. All right. Good night, Jonathan,
Good night,
and
Ethan.
see you next week.
Take care.
Okay.
Hey,
Bye.
maybe we should argue about feng shui.
Oh, yeah. Why not?
See ya.
Yeah. Yeah. See you.